Hi, I'm Michael Claridge.
And I'm Brian Nettles. Welcome to the Book of Mormon Heartland podcast.
Our aim is to validate the historicity of the Book of Mormon through language, artifact, historical, and scriptural research.
We believe the Lamanites are the Native American Indians living in North America, and it is our desire to let the voices of their ancestors come out from the dust.
Welcome to our podcast.
So, welcome to the Book of Mormon Heartland podcast today. My name is Brian Nettles, and I've got with me as a commentator, Kristen Mortensen. Would you like to introduce yourself, Kristen?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kristen Mortensen. I live in Spring City, Utah, and been involved in Heartland for probably 10 years, and more particularly in the Isaiah Institute and thinking about prophecy and Hebrew prophecy in the latter days. So that's been my interest.
Great. And we've got Adam Stokes with us. Adam, why don't you introduce yourself?
Be happy to. Yeah, I'm Adam Stokes. I'm kind of a mutt. I'm all over the place. My background is in biblical languages. So I've studied biblical Hebrew, ecclesiastical Greek, and ecclesiastical Latin. And I'm currently a Latin teacher at the Lawrenceville School near Princeton, New Jersey. Teach Caesar and all those boring guys that you have to read when you're in high school. But I enjoy it immensely. Very big Heartlander. I've loved the Book of Mormon ever since I had personally kind of a spiritual mystical experiences with it almost 11 years ago, and became fascinated with kind of the correlation between the Nephites and the Lamanites and the traditions of giants and people of larger than normal stature that you get with the Hopewell and Adena in the Midwest. And through my interest in that, through my study of that, I came across Wayne May and John Lefgren and Kevin Price and Jonathan Neville, and really got fascinated in uncovering the world of the Book of Mormon here in North America. So thanks so much for having me.
Great, thank you. Now I understand you mentioned Hebrew. You used to teach Hebrew, is that right?
Yes, I used to teach Hebrew. I was a graduate student for a while. I was working on my doctorate. It didn't quite work out. But I was one of the teachers of Hebrew at the seminary I was working on for my doctorate.
Great. So Hebrew is not new to you, which is fantastic for us.
I've actually known Hebrew since I was in college. Actually, I wanted to do a PhD in Hebrew Bible. Like I said, it didn't work out. But one of the reasons I went to divinity school and then to do a doctoral program after that was to study the Hebrew Bible, particularly the Book of Job.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. So I've entitled this one, The Third Morning, Interview with Adam Stokes. And Adam, I'm going to be showing you an artifact.
Okay.
Have you seen this artifact before?
I think I saw it briefly. I think it was your slideshow or something back 2 or 3 years ago. Wayne did a conference in Independence, and I've only seen an image of this when Wayne May hosted his Book of Mormon symposium 2 years ago in Nauvoo, Illinois. So, and I remember the cross, but I'm not as familiar with this one as I am with some of the other ones.
Okay, great. Okay. So, like you said, you'd mentioned that Wayne May had shown this. This is Wayne May's artifact. He likes to make certain that we give credit to Ancient American, ancientamerican.com. And there are two artifacts that I'm going to be showing today that belong to Wayne May, and this is one of them. So
there's a mystic symbol up there, actually.
What's that?
The mystic symbol right above the cross.
Yeah, right there. Kristen, what do you see in this artifact?
Well, I see that mystic symbol and the road, it looks like from the temple or the city to the cross, and then the road which goes along, and it looks like somebody's carrying a body.
Okay.
And then the path is going to what appears to be a tomb or a cave. Up above it, there are 3 marks. And then it looks like this person with their arms outstretched is coming out of the cave. And then there's a bunch of really interesting letters. And I think, Brian, you're going to tell us a little bit about that.
We're going to talk about it. So do you think this is Jesus Christ?
Who else could that be? And it's, yeah, isn't,
Yeah.
I mean, that's who the mystic symbol always refers to, isn't it? And, I don't know what the hands mean that are, it looks like there's a mark in the hand, the mark in the wrist. That's got to be Jesus's hand.
What do you
Isn't
think?
it?
What do you see, Adam, you want to talk about that wasn't already explained?
Really interesting stuff here. So as with the other Michigan relics, you can see whatever the alphabet is, it's you can see clearly some Proto-Semitic Paleo-Hebrew words there. So there's an aleph, in that from the right, the third letter is an aleph. And then all the way down that first line, keep going at, that's a tav, I believe, in Paleo-Hebrew. So interesting amalgamation of different letters. And then down there at the bottom, I think is some Egyptian, like, yes, right there, that fuzzy thing right there. Those two look like what you find in hieroglyphics. Now, I'm not an expert on hieroglyphics, but I do recognize some of the symbols.
Okay.
So it's interesting because this is exactly what, Nephi's talking. He's talking about the Reformed Egyptian as being kind of a blend of Hebrew and other Semitic, and of Hebrew and of Semitic languages, Hebrew, Egyptian, etc. And that's kind of exactly what we see here. So the linguistic stuff is always really interesting to me.
Yeah. So for those of you who are new to this particular artifact is from Burrows Cave. So the location of Burrows Cave was somewhere along the Wabash River. Some people think it was on the Illinois side. Some people think it was on the Indiana side. It depends on who you talk to. I spoke with Russell Burrows, and he told me that it was actually on the Indiana side, but I only met with Russell twice. Other people think it's on the Illinois side. So,
That's
Russell
interesting
never,
right there, because that's not in the region where like the other Michigan relics are usually found.
no, this is a Burrows Cave artifact.
Yeah,
It's not a
this
Michigan
is
relic.
far away. Yeah,
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 this is south,
yeah.
a couple states, a state.
Yeah, state or two. Yeah,
Yeah, a
Indiana.
state or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So now, have you by chance, I'm talking to you, Adam, looked at the website that I created called burrowscave.io?
Yes, I've looked at some of the manuscripts. I've looked at some of the images you have there. Beautiful images, by the way, for anybody who wants to check them out. John was showing me the scurvy one that you had. So I've
Yeah.
looked at that one, but I've seen a couple of the other ones as well.
Let me show you. There's a very important part of the burrowscave.io website that I hope that you will eventually be able to take the time to study. And that's this is this page on transliterating the Burrows Cave artifacts, because on this, what I did, let me go back to what I did is I went through a book called Punica, and I wrote down all the different variations of alephs, all the variations of baits and gimels that are in the Punica book written by J.B. Shabbat back in the early 1900s. And then I was comparing these to what I saw in the Burrows stones, and I did my best. There was a lot of trial and error trying to figure out the matches to the letters. And when I say trial and error is I would look up words and then compare it to, say, like Google Translate, to find out if I could find an actual translation, if that letter works. And so you could see some similarities, like here on the mem. If you think of Phoenician, you think of it looking like this, but these are also different ways of writing it in Phoenicia, even in X.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Libyan, and and this symbol is used prevalently. Both of these are prevalently in these artifacts.
Yeah.
And so I've used this transliteration key, like you're going to see this one as being a dalet. You're also going to see this one as a dalet, and they use the same two symbols in the same document.
Yeah. And later on, like for the dalet, that's an interesting one you pointed out, because sometimes, so for example, Los Lunas stone and over in New Mexico, it uses a delta, Greek delta for the dalet.
More like this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The Phoenician.
Yeah.
Yes. And there being a zayin, and all of these are in this stone.
Yeah.
So so on this first line, it starts with what is probably a resh, but I'm going to just tell you straight up that I don't know the meaning of this first letter, but I go for these next 4 letters and I see the Lamed, Aleph. You mentioned that might be a tau, that might
At
be a
the very
tau.
end might be a tau. Yeah.
It actually almost seems like it's an anomaly here because it could be a wa, kind of like the nail markings, but it's more like a T. And then I got an M. And then I went to the Hebrew dictionary and I find the Lamed Aleph and then a Mem. I see the Lamed Aleph and I see a wa and a Mem for the word
Mhm.
nation.
Yep. Laom. Yep. So literally to the nation or for the nation.
Okay.
Although the Lamed can also be a direct object marker. So you could just translate it just like you have it up there, Brian, just as nation. So
Nation.
a lot of times it's a preposition, so either 2 or 4. So le David, either 2 or 4, David. But like that's how a lot of the titles of the Psalms are. But it can also be untranslated just as a direct object marker, which it might be here. You don't really get a fancy direct object marker till later in Hebrew. So you could just translate it as nation or people here.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So you see it as nation or people. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oops. The next one. Zayin, Dalet, Mem. Now it's possible that could be an Aleph.
Could be a top.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be a Ta. It could be, but if I go with it as being a Zayin, because it's turned over, usually it's standing up, but this one's kind of fallen over.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this might be a Zayin and a Dalet and a Mem. And when I came to the dictionary, let's go. We're in the Zayins. These are Zayin Bates, Zayin Dalet, a wicked person. I got a Zayin Dalet Wakof. Let me see.
Insolent person. Yeah.
Wicked person. And so as I looked at these, I'm thinking that this may be a close. I'm not sure what that mark is right there. Do you know what that mark is?
That's just showing you what the ending would be. So that Hirik Yod Main, that's just your plural, your masculine plural Hebrew ending. So wicked peoples. So this would be, so you have that Zion and Dalet, Zed, Zion, Sarai, Dalet, and then Zedim is just your plural. So Zed would be wicked person, Zedim would be wicked people.
So would you agree with me then if this is Zayin Dalet, if that's a mem,
Yeah,
that this would be saying a nation of wicked people?
exactly. Good. So Latin does this as well. I would take the wicked as kind of an adjective modifying people, but either way you translate is perfectly fine. So what's an example I can give? Ish Ra'ah, a man who is bad, but you could also just say the bad man. So you could also just take this as wicked nation. But the way you rendered it, Brian, is perfectly fine. So
Okay.
nation that is wicked. It's the same sense. The idea is that these are not good people. These are not righteous people.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, does that not fit the context that it was a nation of wicked people
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
nailed Jesus on the cross?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kristen, do you have any comment?
Yes, I think that's exactly what we're talking about here, isn't it? The nation of wicked people that murdered him.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna go to the next line because now we're gonna have a little bit of a mixture going on in this next one. So when I look at the chart, I was wondering if that was a cough or it was a rash. And I went with the rash followed by that same dalet, the same dalet that's used in these two.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few words that are resh dalet. But the one
Mhm.
that stood out to me is to scream, wail, and sigh. And so, I mean, I could go over a whole bunch more, but the one that still fits the context the most to me is scream, wail, and sigh. Okay. You okay with that, Adam?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because Reish Dalet, that can also be Yerad from going down. So the Yod, Reish Dalet, the Yod drops out a lot of times. So you just have that. So it could also mean to go down. But I think either option works. I think the scream to scream or to sigh works as well. So there's a couple of options. I think either one
Okay.
goes well, depending on what comes next. So
Okay. So this turned over 3, that's actually going to take us to Demotic Egyptian. So this is where my theories start to come in, because we've got this from the book by Leonardo Caldas Vieira, Demotic Egyptian Guide, where a female singular definite article, the word the, looks like a 3, but this is kind of turned over. So it almost sounds like I'm reaching when I say that. Then I come to the Nauvoo brick, which you can buy at the Nauvoo Mercantile Store. And you got this symbol right here at the beginning of the Book of Mormon. And you're going to see this symbol right here, which I'm defining as a letter N in Egyptian, which means of sometimes, and sometimes it means something else, but I've got it down here too. So I think that's fascinating that this symbol that comes from Joseph Smith is found in this artifact too, but that's okay. We're focusing on the word the. And then we've got this other artifact, which was actually the image was emailed to me from Boyd Tuttle under an oath of secrecy. And if this makes it to the video, it's because Wayne May approved it. So, okay.
tell Boyd I said hello next time I take the time to talk to him. So
Yeah, great. Okay. So this, he let me see this image, and this demotic R, demotic M, demotic S for the name Ramses. Then that symbol for this thing that looks like a wrench is hieratic for branch. Then you got a line, which is a demotic N for the word of, and then you have a demotic G and a B. So Ramses, the branch of Geb, and Geb is an ancient Egyptian god.
yeah.
Okay, so we have another example of this symbol meaning the word the. So it's kind of like he wailed or he screamed or he cried out the, and a plus sign, which I'm thinking is simply a reference to the cross. So he wailed or sighed the cross.
It's interesting because a lot of times in Hebrew, Latin does this as well. The noun will follow the verb that it's the subject of. So you could even say the cross screams or shouts, not the cross literally screaming or shouting like in some Gnostic text, but it could be the person who's on the cross is shouting.
Okay, great. So now this next word, MGD, Mem Gimel Dalet, M Gimel Dalet. And I looked at this for Mem Gimel Dalet, excellence, choice thing. Is that a description of Jesus Christ?
Again, it could be yes. So it could be an adjective modifying the cross. So the choice one who's on the cross shouts, Rod.
Perfect. And that's exactly what happened in the historical context of the story.
Yeah.
We get to the next line, we have 3 markings. If I go for my transliteration chart, this would give me a hey cough, but I think that the 3 lines are matching to the 3 lines above the tomb. For 3 days, perhaps. Yeah. And then I come to the Ojibwe, and we've got sunrise, sunset, noon, but we have the line coming down below as opposed to going up above. And so I think this is saying the 3rd morning.
Yeah. So the third sunrise. Because it's low, but it's in the direction, it's in the location where the sunrise will be.
Yeah. So I mean, This one's coming down. These ones have it above the ark, but it's still, it seems like, for context, it seems like it's a match, the third morning,
Yeah.
because we know it was on the third morning that he rose. This symbol is actually used throughout these artifacts. And I don't really want to take a lot of time to go on it at this time, because it's a Libyan L with a cut from the Egyptian water symbol. And in different artifacts, it seems to mean different things. Traditionally, those who study these artifacts thought it meant Helios. But I don't think it means Helios. I think it means to the water.
That'd be interesting, because Helios is the god of the sun, and you have in textual traditions. So Jesus is called, in some textual traditions for Malachi, he's called the Son of Righteousness, S-O-N, and then in others he's called the Son of Righteousness, S-U-N.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen some artifacts where it seems like this means to wash in water, maybe even referring to baptism. I've seen some artifacts where it seems to be referencing they're mariners, like they're on the waters, they go to the waters. And now I've seen a couple where I think it's indicating to overseas. And so I think it's saying on the third morning overseas. But this is very cryptic, I guess you could say, from our standpoint, because it's not Hebrew.
Yeah.
We're kind of figuring out what it means, but this is not Hebrew.
Yeah.
But so I'll say it's the third morning overseas.
What do you do with that last thing right there? The Samek, I believe it's a Samek or a scene.
This one right here?
Hebrew, yeah. What is that?
I'm finding in the Burrows stones that this tends to be a tzadeh.
Tzadeh, okay.
But I don't know how it makes sense to be used as a tzadeh here.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Brian, because the Zadeh, I wonder if this is a short form, if the Zadeh is being used in reference to a larger word. So what came to my mind was Sadiq, the righteous one. So Zadi, Dalit, Kof. So the third day, basically maybe the righteous one rises or something.
I think that's beautiful, Adam.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and you've just given some insight that I had no clue to. Okay. Now we'll get to the last line next, and I'm gonna skip these first four symbols, and we'll just go straight to the Hebrew right here. That's a gimel and a pei. And the gimel and the pei, everything has at least a third letter. So I'm going to make my choice as being to embrace. Okay. But it could be something else. It could be any one of these here.
Well, for a lot of Hebrew letters, so if you have I'm blanking on, there's a special term in Hebrew for a consonantal cluster that has two of the same consonants. Sibilant or something like I can't remember the term, but that's the two pays are going to merge into one another. So you would have only a gimel and a pay for if it was to embrace and to caress, which is what we see here. So that's very likely.
Wonderful. Okay. And so I'll work backwards, and I already pointed out this letter right here, and I'm going to show it here on this Michigan artifact. And this is from the Rudolf Etzenhauser document, where I have a bunch of the letter N, and I call this the letter N because it was used in the name Noah in another Michigan artifact. It's used for the letter of, for the letter N in the word of on the Nauvoo brick. And it's very commonly used in the Michigan artifacts. And when I taught this a few years ago, I was pointing out that this was an N, this was an L, because it was the word for the word Babel, and it had BBLL, and this was the L. And I looked at it and said, well, that's a bunch of Nephite. That's a Nephite army facing up against a Lamanite army.
Mm.
Okay. And then I come back to this artifact, and I'm going to once again use the word Nephite right here, and he embraced the Nephites. For these three symbols, I don't know this one right here. This one, I don't know. I actually don't know any of these. They look like unto the Michigan artifacts.
Yeah, they look like It looked Egyptian to me, those two at the
Okay.
bottom.
I don't recognize them as Egyptian words, but what it looks like to me, and this is purely guessing, okay, is that you have a cross and a bunch of ticks. It's as though it's depicting Christ descending, maybe even descending with a host of angels. I'm guessing here.
Yeah.
This looks like unto a torch. In the Michigan artifacts, the torch actually extends on both sides. What you see on this right side is also on the left side when you're depicting a torch in the Michigan artifacts. So Christ descended with a host of angels as fire, and he embraced the Nephites. I don't know what this middle symbol is. No clue.
Yeah, I'm blanking on that middle symbol as well. I have not seen that.
Yeah, well, yeah, a tzadeh with the cross on it. I just don't know. Yeah, that's basically completes the artifact here. If we go back to
Makes a
the,
lot of sense in the context of the image itself. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, so we go back to the image itself, and it's a wicked nation, or a nation of wicked people wailing, uh, the choice one wailing on the cross, or the one of excellence wailing on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
On the third morning overseas, he arose. What did you say that meant?
Oh, the righteous one, like the righteous one arose. Again, an
The
adjective.
righteous one arose.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's saying he descended with angels as fire, and he embraced the Nephites using the Michigan symbol for the letter N. It's just an N, but I've been interpreting that N to sometimes mean Nephites.
Yeah.
What do you think about the translation, Adam?
I think, it, like I said, ties in very well with what is depicted in the image itself of clearly Christ crucified, like Kristen said, that's a hand up there with a nail through the hand. So Christ is crucified by his enemies. He's buried, and then he rises to glory because he is righteous on the third day. So I think it works. It fits in well.
Great. Kristen, do you have any comment?
No, I think it's really cool how the illustrations can help inform your translation.
Yeah.
And I just think that's awesome.
To me, this validates third Nephi. I mean, it doesn't prove third Nephi, but it sure comes close. I mean, I can't say for certain that means Nephite, but to me, I think it does. I'd be sure nice if they spelled out Nephite in Hebrew, but they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Or if they spelled Nephite in Demotic Egyptian or something like that, but they don't do that. We've
Well,
seen
I
it.
think it's amazing that they know this story. I mean, I think it validates third Nephi in other ways as well, because that they know this is found in Illinois or Indiana, and they know of the crucifixion story that's taken place in the old world across the Atlantic. Somehow that story got over here. And for me, that's proof of, what third Nephi says as well, with the Nephites knowing about Jesus' crucifixion from Jesus telling them about it.
Yeah. Adam, would you like to share your thoughts about Jesus Christ?
In general,
Yes.
yes. So Jesus is Lord and Savior. He's he's my master. In our tradition, he is I know this differs with other religious traditions, but he is God the Father himself. So yeah, so my Lord and Savior. Yes.
Great.
But he also but I also firmly believe through faith and through a testimony of the Book of Mormon that he walked where we are at in North America, and especially the Midwest. That was where he walked, and he met the Nephites, and he preached to them, and he healed them, just like third Nephi says.
Kristen, would you like to add to this?
Yes, I would just briefly. I am, when he came to the Nephites and spoke to them, he said, I created the heavens and the earth and all things that in them are, all things. And I have a friend who likes to say all is a very high percentage. And so it's just miraculous that he had this power to live after he was so brutally murdered. And this glorious resurrection is an inspiration to all of us. And I think it's is perfectly captured on this artifact. Just amazing and very exciting.
Yes, I love it too. I just want to say that I know that Jesus Christ is my Lord and my Savior. I love him. I love the joy that he gives me, the love that he fills me with. One thing that I know for certain is that when I walk the path the best that I can in the way that he would want me to walk, I feel joy, I feel love, and I love my Savior because of that. I look at the artifact on here and I believe firmly that this is a depiction of Jesus Christ, that he rose on the third day from the tomb, that he visited these people in America, and that he taught them his gospel. And I'm very grateful for that. And I just feel so blessed to be able to find these artifacts. I feel blessed that I'm being able to work on these artifacts and work with the translation. Go ahead, Kristen.
I was just saying it's pretty cool that the artifact expresses a love in his embrace of the Nephites, because that is his gospel, the gospel of love.
Yes, with his arms outstretched there because he was embracing the Nephites. And that is why it uses the word embrace at the very bottom, because he's got his arms outstretched as the embrace. And you could see the markings in his wrist.
Yeah.
That's what he says in 3rd Nephi. He says, "Come to me, embrace me, feel the prints in my hands, and know that I am the God of Israel." And one of the things I love about 3rd Nephi, when you read the Gospels in the New Testament, a lot of it is Jesus being rejected. But yeah, I was just saying that when you read 3rd Nephi, Jesus is so full of joy, and he wants the Nephites to come to him and to feel the nails in his hands and the nails and the marks in his feet, and to know that he's the God of Israel. And there's just so much joy and happiness there. And you don't really get that in the New Testament, where Jesus is being persecuted by the Pharisees and his enemies.
Yes. And as opposite sides of the world, the Jews were destroyed about 70 years later, or shall I say their nation was destroyed.
Yeah.
Yet in America, after Jesus visited them, they had 200 years of peace and lived in peace and prosperity.
Yeah.
And the artifacts of the earth even speak to that, because even the archaeologists of today in North America, they look at the mounds that were built in Ohio and other places, and they say these people lived in peace for 200 years. I've heard that from people who don't believe in the Book of Mormon, but are archaeologists talking about what happened to the land. Well, thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope that you got something out of it, and have a great day. This concludes our Book of Mormon podcast. Our intent is to do a real deep dive into this research. This will require great resources so that we can provide forensic research, photography, 3D scanning, visits to multiple locations of related Book of Mormon lands, and the resources needed for quality publishing. Your donations are the only way we can make this happen. Michael, tell us about our membership plan.
Well, for only $25 a month, you can become a gold plate member of Book of Mormon Heartland.
A nonprofit organization. What does that include, Mike?
Well, it includes a monthly Zoom call where we talk about everything that we're doing.
When is that Zoom call?
Every second Thursday of every month.
Is that all?
Nope, we will be making replicas of the artifacts. When they become available, we'll send you one.
How do you join?
It's real simple, Brian. All you got to do is go to bookofmormonheartland.com and find the donate tab.